Okay, so season 5 of Danmachi is on the books. Let's talk about it because, oh my goodness. Well, we're going to specifically talk about this episode. I think we're going to cover the whole season. I got to go back and rewatch like the whole thing because honestly, it started so long ago. We had so many breaks and so many weird stuff. Before I do a full series retrospective, we really need to I personally need to go do some reviews and rewatches. So here's the deal. We started off this season, I do remember distinctly, kind of weak in the animation department, and it does feel like JC Staff was even aware of this. Now, before I give my review on the animation of this episode, let me say this is another one of those, when it was on, most of the time it was on. Two notable exceptions, and one of those, I want to talk about the first-person scene with Ryu running. Okay, it was very clearly animated two different ways, right? You had the one animation layer of her running just over a transparent background, and all of her motions from her first-person perspective were its own thing. Then you had the motion of her running at Otaro and the normal view that we would see, where you approach him, you jump over him. She even clears his sword at one point. That whole scene, I appreciate what they were attempting to do. Something like that is so outside the comfort zone for JC Staff, and I think had we seen that, maybe even as many as 5 years ago, we would be blown away. I say we, the royal we, would be completely blown away by it. But honestly, the way anime works now, and how we've seen so much, we've done so much, it felt clunky. It felt like it was two different scenes blended together. It didn't feel like one scene. There wasn't as much the weight and the gravity. It's hard to explain, but the weight and the gravity of the two scenes didn't work well together. It looked like two distinctly different scenes. Like they had one plan, they went with another, and they took two people's idea and blended it together. I appreciate the attempt, but it wasn't altogether executed well. But here's what I'm going to say. It's so outside of their comfort zone to do something like that, to go out there and to try to be one of the top tier studios and to try to do this. Credit given, okay? You've got to run before you can crawl. And right there, that was them. You got to run before you got to crawl before you can run. Oh my God, I said that backwards. You got to crawl before you can run. So what this was their standing up moment. We are trying to do something here. We are trying to do something different. We're trying to stand out in this crowd of all these anime studios. Credit given. While I don't think it was the most successful thing, I appreciate what they were trying to do, and I want to give them credit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them half credit on that scene. There were a couple other scenes that I thought could use some work, especially for as much time as they've had to do this and all that. I'm going to give them an 8.5 in animation score for this episode, because once again, when it was on, it was on. It was fantastic. I think there were a number of things that could have been executed better, but we are also talking about a studio that isn't necessarily known to break the mold in their animation. And now that they're really trying these new techniques and trying to break those old habits, genuinely appreciated. Now, we did have a lot of scenes that were just still frames and things like that. And I think I don't feel wrong asking for more, but for a studio that's now going out of their way and is trying, and for what we saw out of season 4 and what we've seen out of this, I think they have the talent in that studio to do amazing things. I think the direction probably needs to change a little bit, but they're learning, and I think that's great. The old guard is starting to realize that they've got to do things in a more modern way, and that to me is commendable, and actually I really, really, really love that. So 8.5 on the animation score. If that's too harsh, in your opinion, you let me know. I almost feel like it's too lenient, but I have to give credit where credit's due. So jumping over to sound design, I think sound is one of those areas where JC Staff has absolutely nailed it every time. Now, while they do have their staple Danmachi sounds, they work. They're fantastic. Their Foley art is great. Even the music is always fantastic. Everything is always on point there. So I'm going to go 10 out of 10 on that. No complaints whatsoever. If you have any legitimate criticisms, I would love to hear it in the comments. Now, story. Now, the story predominantly we can all attribute back to the light novels and to Omori, but the story is always spot on. Now, I might give it a little bit of a more lenient ranking because I am such a huge fan of Omori's writing, but to be honest, the way it was basically brought to screen, so to speak, is more or less how I'm going to rate this. And I thought this was an amazing way to kind of wrap up the series and to wrap up this story. And it seems like we've got one arc left, and I don't know when we're actually at the anime for that, because it's going to take a long time to adapt that. In fact, we don't even have the light novels for it yet. So, you know, we are now getting ready. I think we've got, two light novels? I think, yeah, there's 2 out currently in Japan that are going to lead into that. So maybe we'll get some movies or get some shorts or something like that. Something that's going to kind of lead into that. But all said and done story-wise, the way it was adapted, the way it was brought to life, I had one extremely minuscule nitpick throughout the episode. It wasn't even worth harping on about. I'll just give it a 9.75 out of 10 because that nitpick was so indescribably minuscule. So, let's jump into the episode review section of this. If you haven't watched the episode, absolutely go do so. Pause the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because we are about to get into some major, holy crap level of spoilers. I'm assuming you're paused if you need to. Let's jump in. It is not my fault if you get spoiled going forward, because, man, we left off with that Otaro fight, and it looked bleak. Otaro's full JoJo mode. Like, he is an unstoppable force. He looks larger and more menacing than he ever has, and I'm guessing that has something to do with the beast form that he's taken on. Either way, dude is a hoss, more than he ever has been. It is crazy. You've got the forces of Ryu, Mamma Mia, and Belle, and Eden, all 4 of them fighting simultaneously. But while this is happening, you do see Hestia and Haruhime finally appear on screen, and Haruhime basically is kind of introduced in the fold, because before you see her, you actually see the level boost, and the level boost hits Eden, Mamma Mia, like she even needed one, but I guess she kind of sort of really did here, and Ryu simultaneously. And we know that Ryu's got a huge level up. Ryu's got a huge boost. So, in fact, after the level ups there, they're like, for all intents and purposes, Ryu is now a level 7, which is crazy. Crazy. Absolutely nuts. Which I would think Mamma Mia would be a higher level than she was, but whatever, doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Nevertheless, because they say it's like 3 level 7s, and we'll get to the other half of that in a moment. Which I thought Mamma Mia already was a level 7, but whatever. I could be wrong on that. My Mamma Mia lore is probably a little bit off. Anyway, I digress. So now that basically they've all got level boost, like, they're holding Otaro at bay, but the honest answer here is, like, Otaro doesn't even seem to be breaking a sweat. Like, he's clearly trying, but he's not, like, going all out. Like, he's had to go beast mode, but even in his beast mode, he's just kind of moving. Like, he's not on the ropes yet. So, meanwhile, the whole point in Hestia being there is the fact that Hestia is there to do a level up, basically, on Belle. She sits him down, she reads his Exilia, and she goes, okay, this is what you got. I wish it was a little bit more, but bam, there you go. And we see that Belle is finally a level 5, and a high level 5, it seems. Dude is I mean, he's creeping up there in the power, right? And Harahime unleashes a level boost on him. And that's when the crowd basically says it's 3 level 7s and a level 6 for all intents and purposes going into this match. So now Bell is sent out there, but Bell still is like, he's going at it, but he is absolutely still got his shortcomings. Hedon has been knocked out of the fight for all intents and purposes. And Bell kind of like leans on him, and Hedon like lurches forward and unleashes a spell on him that basically culminates in basically a lightning level boost / shield. And as Bell is fighting Otaro, you can see the lightning is actually like affecting Otaro a little bit, but it's also given Bell a huge speed boost and a little bit of a power up. It's not a full level boost. He's not a level 7 per se at the moment, but speed wise, he's on par, if not maybe a little bit faster than Otaro. Like, he is stupid fast. And there's even a moment where Hestia is like, I can barely make out what's going on. He is moving so fast. So essentially, he's got like a double level boost to this point, and everyone else is out of the fight, and now it is Bell basically soloing Otaro. Now, Otaro, once again, he's not on the ropes, but he's definitely being held at bay, which is incredible if you think that 6 months ago, this kid showed up as essentially a peasant child with no powers at all, and here he is now holding his own against a dude they call the King because he is so powerful. And Bell even harkens back to his first fight with the Minotaur and his fight with Asterius. He's like, I have been preparing for this, but this is that same feeling. And essentially, Bell is now more or less just doing everything he can to kind of keep Otaro busy. But shortly after that, Mamma Mia and Ryu have recovered just enough. They're back in the fray, and all 3 of them are just going ham. And finally land some decisive blows on Otaro. But that's not for long. Bell starts charging up his Argonaut skill. And the whole time that we saw this boost that Hedon has applied, I was like, how is this going to affect Firebolt? Like, how is the Firebolt going to, like, level up here? And slow motion, the two kind of charge in at one another. And basically, Bell has used his Argonaut skill, for all intents and purposes, to aggro Otaro. Slides underneath him, uses himself as a decoy, turns around, and unleashes an absolutely insane Firebolt. But not until Mamma Mia is able basically to get in quite a few amazing licks, to the point where she breaks her shovel on his abs. Ryu unleashes this crazy attack of her own. Mamma Mia is over there literally wailing on him like fisticuffs. And Bell turns around while Otaro is literally mid-air reeling from this onslaught and unleashes the biggest, craziest, most Goku level Firebolt we have ever seen. And it is one for the history books. If this isn't his biggest and best, it's not the most grandiose. And that's kind of one of my little nitpicks about the episode. It's not the most grandiose one we've ever seen. I wanted to see a little more Toei level cinematic out of it. But the way it goes off, the way it lands is, honestly, just next level. It is crazy. Absolutely insane. And Otaro literally comes out, and as he's approaching, the whole time you're going, this dude is pissed. How is this going to happen? And he literally walks slowly out of the rubble, like a dude walking away from an explosion, walks towards the now level 7-ish Bell, and kneels before him. Takes a freaking knee. Could Otaro have finished the fight? Possibly. But he yields. And I think that's arguably more important. I think that is a moment where he has finally accepted someone else. He has finally met someone that he sees as an equal. Because we saw earlier in the series where Otaro basically came from very similar circumstances as Bell. He was just a kid on the streets, and Freya took him in, and he basically had nothing, right? He looked like a hungry, starving child. Basically, looked like he was like a mangy wolf, right? And then this dude was taken in by Freya and, fed and clothed and just nurtured to a point at which he was able to get where he is now. And at this point, it's a foot race. They happen to realize that Alan is on his way. They even say that like Vana Freya is on his way, and you need to get the hell out, because we know once he arrives, that dude is not going to hold back. That dude will fight to his last breath. He does not care at all. He's like the honey badger of the group, right? He could be outclassed a 1,000-fold, and he's just going to keep going until all hope is lost. And then it doesn't take long before he catches up with Bell. And even with Bell's new speed boost, even with his double, I guess you could say it's like a speed-wise, it almost feels like a double level stat, because we already know that Alan is insanely fast. But Alan's not quite on Otaro's like level, but definitely the two in a race, Alan no doubt is faster. Alan is a speedy dude. And Bell's essentially just a tiny bit slower. And there's a few moments where Alan is able to like unleash an attack and Bell's able to just like clear it ever so slightly. And as the two are kind of culminating, the whole time you're going, how is this going to end? Because Alan even calls ahead, and he's like, a couple of the grunt levels. He's like, close the gates, and they start unleashing these magical attacks. And as Bell is approaching Freya, you see this fire blast kind of come out of nowhere and hit Alan. And that's when you realize this is Welf. And he's been standing by with one of his magic swords and actually unleashes this crazy magic attack on Alan, and it's just enough to distract him just long enough that Bell is now in the clear. And, of course, Bell approaches Freya, and from this point on, the episode essentially revolves around her coming to grips with what has just happened. She lost the Familia War. And it's actually a little cute because she more or less admits that, doesn't fully admit, but in so many words kind of admits that the whole Freya like persona is very much an act. She kind of almost, so to speak, like obviously she's very much putting on airs, and that Seer is almost the original version of her, sort of. It's still a little vague, but essentially what she sought is not necessarily, physical affection or anything like that. She's actually sought after true love, and she thought Bell was it, and then they have this sweet little moment, but inevitably Bell's like, we have to end this here. Like, I'm breaking up with you, essentially, and then cuts the flower from her chest, and that's it. The war game is over. The Hestia Familia won, and it is insane. And to make matters kind of short here, because the end of the episode is fantastic, but I don't even think I could. I don't even think I could do it justice how great and emotional the end of the episode is. But essentially, for all intents and purposes, you have the Freya Familia getting completely disbanded, sort of, which, was the conditions of the war game. Freya's basically in Mamma Mia's pub, and she's more or less just like, going over like basically with what's gonna happen. And Mamma Mia basically offers her a job. She's like, you're penniless now. You're broke. Be interesting if I had an opening, and if somebody wanted to come work for me. And Freya's just like, nah, as a deity, I've got to move on, blah, 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 pride, Saiyan warrior race, blah. So basically, Freya just kind of ups and leaves, and that's when she runs into all the other waitresses and Belle outside. And they have this very sweet interaction where basically at the end of the day, Freya more or less just kind of like, as she's walking away, she puts up her cloak, and you hear her voice change into Seer. And basically Ryu walks up and just backhands her, right? She's like, how dare you? And as the cloak the cloak falls, you realize that this is actually Seer. This is not Freya. This is Seer. And yeah, it's very heartfelt. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And it seems like she has now agreed, basically, more or less, after everyone all said and done, that she is going to stay. Also, I noticed that Ryu's hair is a lot more blonde than I ever remember it being. Now, I know she dyes it, or magically enhances it or something. Essentially, she changes the color of her hair, and it seems way more blonde than it ever was, but also at the same rate, they now know she's in town, so I'm sure she's just got to go into hiding, so to speak. It's not a great disguise, but it's a disguise. So yeah, I don't know if I have to go back and watch season 1 to see if it was originally that blonde and it just faded over time, which would be an interesting tonal thing. But yeah, all said and done, fantastic. We need to do a series retrospective though, or a season retrospective, because season 5 was fantastic. Now, where would I put it on the rating of all the seasons? I don't know. I've got to go back and rewatch it. My rating seasonally is a little tainted right now because we did have to wait so long and it released at such a weird, duration of time and so to speak. But I very much did enjoy the end of it. I think there were some parts at the beginning that drug on a little bit, but this was also a very different story than what we've had before. Okay, well, not completely. It very much harkened back tonally to the Xenos saga and stuff like that. But it also gives you a lot of vibes from season 1 and season 2, harkening back to the original War Game season and all that good stuff. So it's a culmination of all of that. Now, I didn't get a lot of season 4 out of this, but in fairness, season 4 was definitely its own thing. So they're all self-contained stories in this overarching story of Belle. So I'll have to go back and I'll have to rewatch this season all together, binge the whole season and give you guys my thoughts of it. But all said and done, I loved this season. That will probably be, I'm going to guess, 2, maybe 3, depending on my rewatch of season 3. But nevertheless, fantastic. Love the story. Let me know what you guys thought and where would you rank it seasonally. And yeah, we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about it. We have to do the rewatch of season 1. I just finished the light novels for the first half of season 1. I need to go back and redo that. So yeah, because I caught the light novels at the end of season 2. So we'll need to come back and talk about that. I've been making notes. I want that to be a big thing. So we will come back and have a full discussion on that. But for now, make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you guys like the video. And I will catch you guys for more. We'll do, like I said, a series retrospective. We're going to recover season 1. And when we catch up with the light novels, we'll talk a little bit more about what to expect when the final arc of the anime, which I'm gonna guess will probably be 2 seasons. They'll probably do, please don't do an Attack on Titan thing. Oh, jeez. Final season, part 47, movie 3. No, I want this to be 2 seasons of the anime, culminating in the most grandiose battle we have ever seen, and go from there. So we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about plans for the future. We'll talk light novel. We'll talk seasons 1 through 5 retrospective. We'll talk about all that coming up soon. And I'll see you then for that. Later, y'all.